All right, Dragon Ball Super Broly has finally been released in the US. So we're finally able to see it in theaters and give our full thoughts after having actually seen it, those who have paid attention to all the spoilers and everything that's come out. If you haven't, I commend you because like Twitter's full of it, YouTube's full of spoilers and stuff like that. So if you have been able to stay away from spoilers, then that is an accomplishment. But myself, I have paid attention to the spoilers. So going into this movie, I was actually, expecting and seeing all these things. It wasn't like fresh in my mind. So it was almost like seeing it for a second time, especially with all those trailers that came out. They gave away so many of the bigger moments, especially from the fight. But we're going to get into the movie and have some fun talking about it. And I'll go into my review, my thoughts on things as they happen. So the movie starts out with the Frieza Force going down to planet Vegeta with the Saiyans. Now, it's interesting that the Frieza Force was already, kind of occupying planet Vegeta, and the Saiyans were already underlings of King Cold's army. And it's basically the Cold Army or the Cold Empire, whatever you want to call it. And this is Cold passing the torch on to Frieza. And I thought that was really interesting and a really good and interesting world building. And I thought it was interesting that they showed the Ginyu Force. And I think I mentioned this in one of the trailer breakdowns, but they're showing them and they look the exact same they did in the Namek saga, like what is it, 30 years later at that point or whatever. They look the same. So these guys are like senior citizens by the Namek arc. Same with Frieza. I mean, he looks a lot younger. It could be because he's not wearing his armor or whatever, but it's interesting building some of his personality too, because they're kind of establishing him here as being like the maniac that he is. And King Cold even says, this guy, you think I'm rough, like my son, he's going to be even rougher on you guys. And Vegeta is not liking this at all. King Vegeta, that is. And he's kind of groveling. And Frieza shows off, how much rougher than his father is. He delivers the scouters, which it's interesting world building for that, because they're like, oh, here's this new technology. We're going to supply you guys with the technology. You guys go out and conquer planets for us. And speaking of that, it's interesting that they said that the Saiyans were already conquering other worlds. They just weren't doing it for Cold's army until Cold came along. So that was interesting too. But Frieza gives them these scouters, and he's like, "Here, let me demonstrate them." And there's like snipers on these towers, and this was fucking awesome. He's like, "Oh, battle power of 2,000," and boom, you're dead. Boom, you're dead. Boom, you're dead. That was freaking awesome, man. And the intensity of that, just those little blasts that he had were freaking awesome. And 2,000 is apparently an impressive battle power to Saiyans, of course. And if I remember correctly from the spoilers, they were saying that Frieza killed him because he had a high battle power. But to me, it seemed like he was killing him because they had their guns to him, and like, how dare they do that? But anyway, after they leave, Vegeta goes into his little pod and he's like, Vegeta, my son, you are my only hope. You have a unnaturally high battle power, and you're the one who's going to take down Frieza and, basically get the Saiyans out of this situation that they're in, because he obviously does not like that. And then he walks down a little bit and he just kind of picks out a random baby, it felt like, and it just happened to be Broly. And he's like, who is this child? And there's like 100 other pods there. And he's like, he pinpoints Broly for some reason. Who is this stupid kid? Why is he in the presence of my son? And they're like, oh, he had a really high battle power, and maybe it was a technology malfunction, and one of the scouters bursts and shorts out because it reads him, but then the other scouter shows nothing. So it's interesting that they're showing, hey, Broly does have this unnaturally high battle power, even more than Vegeta's, but it goes latent sometimes, and then it grows out of control, and we'll see that definitely later on. And I like how that's kind of reincorporated later in the film. But certain parts of this first like segment felt a little bit disjointed, probably due to the editing. I feel like there might be a longer cut of this somewhere, and they kind of chopped it together, maybe, or missing scenes or something like that. But we cut to Vegeta. and Paragus is like, "Oh, what's going on?" And Vegeta's like, hey, your son is gonna go to this random planet over here." And Paragus is like, "Oh, that's a low level planet. My son's better than that." And Vegeta's like, "Well, your son is dangerous. His power can go out of control." He ends up being right, but that's not his motivation for doing that. He's doing it out of jealousy because Broly has a higher battle power than his son. So, and I liked how they showed how Paragus cares about his son here, or at least his son's latent abilities. So he just immediately charges off to try to save him. But it's too late. The pod was already launched. And so he steals a spacecraft with another Saiyan and he goes off to planet Vampa to, get Broly back. And unfortunately, he ends up crashing their ship on Vampa. And I'm like, oh man. So they're basically stranded on this planet this whole time because of Paragus and his stupidity. I thought it would have been pretty cool if they landed safely and they don't have any worries. They're like, okay, we're gonna get Broly and then we're gonna go back. But it turns out that planet Vampa is so like treacherous and the creatures are so powerful and dangerous that they go and destroy their ship, making it so that they're not stranded, and they're stranded not because of Paragus's idiocy but because the planet itself is so treacherous. I thought that would have been really cool and also would have built up to Broly's rising in strength because he has to survive with only his father there for so many years. So they find Broly, and he is not in the best of moods. So Paragus just grabs his tail and just renders him unconscious immediately. That was pretty awesome. So they go back to the ship, and the scientist guy, whatever his name is, he's like, "I can't fix this ship. We're gonna have to survive on here. How are we gonna survive? We don't have very many supplies." And Paragus is like, "Boom! There's only two of us now that have to survive." I mean, I feel like they could have used that guy's help. Maybe he was a brilliant scientist like Bardock. But anyway, yeah, that just shows like Paragus's brutality, and he is being consumed with revenge now, and Broly is his biggest shot at revenge. So that first little segment there with the whole Paragus and Broly thing, that was really great. I like the world building, especially with the sound design. Like, in no small part, thanks to the sound design, did the tone and the whole atmosphere of everything that was happening was really full and lush and made you it sucked you into that world. And I thought that was great. Very good stuff. So then we cut to 5 years later, and this is where I feel like the story's relevance is significantly lessened, because this is a story about Broly, Paragus, and then Goku and Vegeta and their fight in the third act. But now we cut to basically the story of Dragon Ball Minus. And if you've seen any videos on Minus, there are many issues that it has when it pertains to the overall story of Dragon Ball, Goku going to Earth for this such and such reason, and the kind of ironic kind of themes that were going on with Goku's character and his origins and everything like that. But that aside, I think this was still well made. I think it was well animated, of course, and the voice acting was on point. Gine was in it. She's introduced. She's a sweetheart, I guess. I don't feel like they had much character building for her. Bardock's character seems pretty cool. So he's flying in, and Frieza's kind of calling everybody back, and it's already suspicious to Bardock. And I'm thinking, why is he the only one that's suspicious? Surely there's more Saiyans that would be suspicious of this activity, knowing how brutal Frieza is. And I mean, I'm sure his hatred for the Saiyans has not gone unnoticed, but Bardock has a hunch that something's gonna happen. He thinks that Frieza is gonna do something. Possibly destroy all the Saiyans. So he goes down, he talks with Gine a little bit, and there's little pieces of dialogue here and there that definitely help the Minus story from the manga chapter of Minus. So I think that it definitely made that chapter a lot better. So he goes in, he meets with Gine, and they go to Kakarot, Goku, and he's like, we're gonna get Kakarot off this planet because something's going on. Frieza is gonna do some bad things, and if I'm wrong, then I'll just go to Earth and I'll get him back. And Guinea's like, no, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. That's basically her character. She's just like worried about her son and what they're doing, and she's like, if you are wrong, you're gonna go get him, and that's that. So I really wish that there was more time. Like I said before, I feel like there's stuff cut from this movie, and I feel like that if this story had more time and focused more on building Yine's character, Bardock's character, there would be a whole story here, especially when it comes to after Bardock and Guine send him off. That was kind of an emotional scene, but I feel like that would have been much more emotional if we actually had spent more time building up Bardock and Guine's character and actually, caring about them. But which I didn't really, because, these guys are being introduced here. So, I mean, other than, of course, prior knowledge. So they send Goku off to Earth, and they say, well, if we go with him, then, Frieza's scouters are going to pick us up. But why would their scouters pick them up, but they wouldn't catch like a Saiyan pod escaping orbit? I guess maybe there's so many ships flying around or flying into orbit, they wouldn't notice such a small vessel. So that was interesting. That's just a thought I had, but whatever. But then we cut to Frieza going, and he's doing his giant death ball, and he flings it at the planet, and then suddenly Bardock is there. He's there blasting at the ball. The ball's coming toward. Awesome looking animation here. It's going through the atmosphere. You see Guine, you see all these other Saiyans just standing there and looking at it. And Bardock is the only one blasting at it. And he looks like he's already battle damaged. If it was pretty quick, but it looked like he had already gone through some stuff, which is why I think there's scenes and shit deleted from this thing. But man, I wish that it wasn't just Bardock. I wish that he was rallying up the other Saiyans to try to blast this thing back, and all of the Saiyans, at least all the warriors, or even the non-warriors, just do something to try to blast that thing back. But Frieza, even in this form, is still too much for them. That would have been so much more impactful. But the scene, aside from the negatives, was pretty cool. I do feel like it would have been much better if it was in its own separate entity, because I felt like it didn't fit in the overall grand scheme of this whole movie, other than showing Frieza blow up the planet, which we already knew that Frieza blew up the planet and told everybody that it was a meteor that destroyed it. So we go to, we see Nappa with hair, Vegeta and Raditz. This was a pretty neat little scene, and they're all shocked that a meteor destroyed the planet. And Raditz, mentions that, hey, my brother was sent off to another planet, but whatever, I don't really care, whatever. And then, of course, they mentioned Tarbell, Vegeta's brother, as well, and he doesn't care either. So, and neither do I. But we go on to the transition to present day, which was fantastic. You see the dates going up as freaking Goku's Saiyan pod shoots through space and going into Earth's atmosphere, and then we see Goku as a little kid, and I was like, oh man, this is cool. We're gonna like see him grow up and go through all of his adventures real quick. No, it just kind of shows him and Vegeta sparring in his present day now. So I thought it would have been cool if it did show him going through all of his adventures and his growth as a character. But maybe they did, and it was cut. But that was awesome. Awesome transition. And not to mention the music. Oh, so good. It's just so good. So we've got some really awesomely animated and really cool looking sparring for Goku and Vegeta, which is really awesome. So I very much enjoyed that. And it was nice to get this light-hearted stuff after the super heavy stuff of the Paragus Broly stuff, and then Planet Vegeta being blown up and the Saiyans being wiped out. Which actually reminds me, there's those two other Saiyans, or three other Saiyans, with Nappa, Vegeta, and Raditz. So I'm like, oh, so there might be other Saiyans, or maybe they died in the next 40 years or whatever. But it was nice to have this kind of calm, lighthearted stuff after all that darkness, and it's actually freaking hilarious with Vegeta. He keeps calling Goku an idiot because he resurrected Frieza, which, I mean, if they didn't have Frieza, they would have had much less chance to win the Tournament of Power, of course. But granted, 17 was the MVP of the tournament. Frieza did have his hand in their teamwork, especially in the last few episodes there. So Vegeta is rightfully worried about how much stronger Frieza can get and what he might be planning. And Goku's like, that's not a big deal. We'll just beat him. And and Vegeta's like, what if he makes a new freaking form, man? And I'll mention this in a second because we're gonna go back to Frieza in a minute here. And I've got something to say about something that Frieza wants to do. But Goten and Trunks, who still look like they're 6, they mention to Bulma a break-in and somebody stole the Dragon Balls. Oh man. And I was thinking, well, geez, Bulma, you're super rich. Why don't you have a better security system? And then Vegeta says, hey, Bulma, why don't you have a better security system? So that was freaking hilarious, man. But yeah, there was some Frieza soldiers. They broke in, stealing the Dragon Balls for Frieza, and they're like, man, well, there's only 6 Dragon Balls. We better go get the last one so Frieza can't get his wish, So they head out to do that, leaving Bola or Bra with Beerus to babysit. Now they don't, but I really wish that during the Broly fight that they cut back to Beerus and he's like noticing the explosions or the energy, and he's like, oh, but I have to change this poopy diaper. That would have been freaking hilarious. So they start flying, and Bulma's like, well, I want to wish to be 5 years, or look 5 years younger. And I'm thinking, why don't you wish to be 5 years younger? That'd be a lot better. But then Vegeta would be like a lot older than you. Not that it matters that much, but she just wants to look younger, and then freaking Goku's just being an ass to her. Oh man, such good stuff. So yeah, they're going to get the last Dragon Ball. So we cut to the Frieza Force. Frieza's building it back up, and he wants to get the Dragon Balls. And what's his name? Kakunsa Worm Guy. I like calling him Worm Guy because he looks like a worm, or ET. But he tries to guess why Frieza, or what Frieza wants to wish for. He's like, oh, it's obviously immortality. And Frieza's like, no, I changed my mind on that. I was in hell, and in eternity and everything, in anything, it would be miserable. So I don't want to be alive forever. And I'm thinking, well, when you die, you're going to go back to hell for eternity. Do you know that? So would it be better to have eternal life in the living world where you can basically do whatever you want, or die and go to hell? I would think he would want to live, so I don't feel like his wish should change from being immortal. But I mean, it's pretty humorous. Kakunsa keeps wishing and getting it wrong, and then Blueberry guesses it correctly that he wants to be taller. Why does Frieza want to be taller? Well, it's because some of his henchmen have teased him about how tall he is. The stupidest thing ever, man, I tell you. But Kakunsa's like, well, why do you want to do that? You could just use your second form. And I'm like, yeah, just use your second form. Or better yet, you have created, 5 or 6 forms or whatever. Just create a new form that's similar to your real form, but a little bit taller, and just hang out in that form, But he wants to be 5 centimeters taller because, any more will be too noticeable. Man, I guess that's some character development for Frieza, showing how vain he is, and also reflecting Bulma and how vain she is. So speaking of building up Frieza's army, we go to Lemon, and Chilai. They're kind of going after a distress beacon, and they kind of exposit how she is in the Frieza Force because, she did some bad things or something, if I remember correctly, and she joined Frieza's army. And Lemon actually is kind of in the same boat, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what it is. So they get the distress beacon, and they end up on planet Vampa, where Paragus and Broly are. And Paragus is all bandaged up, and he's like rough. He is rough looking. And I gotta say, Chilai is like one of the best female characters. She is such a great addition to this. And her personality is fleshed out pretty well in this film. And we'll get into that stuff in a minute. But they meet Paragus, and they end up reading his battle power and Broly's power which doesn't register on the scouter, but Paragus is 4,200. And I'm thinking, it's been 40 years. You've been training Broly, who's vastly more powerful than yourself, and you're on this pretty rough planet, and you're only at a 4,200 power level. Is it because you're old now and your power has decreased? Or was it a lot lower before when you escaped to planet Vampa and it's increased to 4,200? It seems pretty low, but he is, I guess, a low class Saiyan, maybe. So I guess that kind of makes sense. But I feel like he should have a higher battle power with, training Broly and Zenkai boosts and all that good stuff. And this all leads into probably my favorite portion of the movie, which is Chilai, Lemon, Paragus, Broly, and their interactions with each other, and good character building stuff there. So Paragus and Broly go on, they meet with Frieza, and Frieza decides to go for Earth to use Broly against Goku and Vegeta. Now, why does Frieza think that Broly stands any chance whatsoever against Goku and Vegeta? He hasn't seen him fight. As far as I mean, can Frieza sense energy? Even if he can sense energy, Broly is pretty heavily suppressed at this point comparatively to what he becomes later. So what is it about Broly that Frieza thinks can't even stand even an ounce of chance against Vegeta and Goku? But at any rate, he decides to do that, and so they start heading to Earth, and we get some really cool, really great scenes, including the candy bar scene where Chilai shares her candy bar with Broly, and he's like, I don't even know what this is. And they do a really great job of showing how naive and uneducated Broly is, because all he's had is his father. And of course, his father is just revenge, 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 and probably has not taught Broly anything aside from maybe training how to fight and everything like that. Nothing about fathering. But we'll get into the shot caller in a second. But yeah, some really great stuff. They're in this, what do you call it, cafeteria or something. And this drunk dude comes up and tries hitting on Chilai, and he's being a jerk to her. And Lemon's like, hey, dude, back off. And he pushes Lemon away. And Broly's like, oh, no, I'm going to step in. This is not right. This guy is a bad guy. So he goes and, he cannot control his temper, and when his emotions start to rise, his power starts to rise, and his power starts to take him over. So he's in danger of just killing this guy out of nowhere, and Paragus is like, hey, you better stop that. And he resorts to using the shot collar, and he starts shocking him, and I'm like, okay, well, even super powerful guys like Broly, electricity coursing through the insides of your body, it still incapacitates you, so I feel like this remote control and shot collar thing is more of a device for Paragus's character and Chilai's character, because it's showing how much of an actual caring person she is. She might have committed a crime or two or three, but she actually cares about people and living beings and how they're treated. And Paragus uses it to control Broly because he is consumed with this revenge. He basically lives for this revenge. And also we'll see later on with his catharsis and realizing that, King Vegeta might have been right the whole time. So Chilai does not like this, and she ends up stealing the remote, and she breaks it after Paragus leaves. But at the same time, I'm thinking, how did Paragus build this collar? If I missed something, just let me know in the comments. But how did he build this shot collar and remote combination to control Broly? Or did it actually exist and it was just on the ship that they crash landed on, like one of Frieza's technology to control some of the more powerful Saiyans or something? I don't know, but if I missed something, just let me know. And I really like this combination of Lemon, Chilai, and Broly, and we get a really nice little story that Broly says. And the voice acting in here is really great because it really shows how uncivilized he is, and because he's not used to talking so much, and he's telling this story about this friend that he made, and the only friend that he ever had, and his father was a dick and shot his friend's ear off, and the pelt around his waist is that friend's ear fur. So he keeps that with him as a memory, and that kind of shows that he has a heart. You know, he's not a bad guy. It's Paragus who is, you know, trying to morph Broly into a weapon, and Broly doesn't necessarily want that. And it also shows that his life has been kind of sucky, and it's because of King Vegeta and Paragus. Those two guys, and Paragus has been beating into Broly's head that, you know, King Vegeta is at fault for all of this, whereas it's actually a lot of Paragus's faults for crashing the ship. He crashed the ship. So if he didn't crash the ship, they wouldn't have been stranded there in the first place. So it was King Vegeta's fault and Paragus's fault for Broly's whole bad lifestyle, although he would be dead if not for King Vegeta anyway. So so he's alive, but he has a crappy life. So they finally arrive in the Antarctic, and Frieza arrives, and he meets Goku and Vegeta there, and they're like, "Oh, Frieza, great, he's here to fight finally, and we're gonna, you know, have a big brawl, whatever." And then they see, hey, those two guys back there are Saiyans, and Broly sees Vegeta. Paragus sees Vegeta too, and they're like, "Oh, he looks just like King Vegeta." And Broly, you know, having had his upbringing, has been told that this guy is your enemy. So he starts getting stirred up, you know, and how he can't really control his power too well. So as his emotions flare up, his power starts to flare up as well. And I kind of wish that they had a little more dialogue between them building up to this attack. Uh, but Vegeta's like, I don't care about any of that. I don't have anything to do with any of that, which he's right, he doesn't. But Paragus is like, I don't care. You're going to take on the sins of your father. So attack Broly. So Broly freaking flings himself at Vegeta, and this begins the rest of the movie, the whole giant ass fight. So Broly jumps in, and Vegeta blocks the punch. And I'm thinking, oh man, wouldn't it have been spectacular, in hindsight, of course, if Vegeta just tanked that freaking punch in the face? And then we have a callback to this when Vegeta's in Super Saiyan God and Broly tanks his punch. That would have been phenomenal, but it's still phenomenal anyway. The animation of this is top notch. Obviously, you know, we've seen, of course, from the trailers, this is the best animated we've seen Dragon Ball probably ever. And it's amazing. This whole fight, Broly just starts getting stronger and stronger and stronger until Vegeta finally resorts to using Super Saiyan. And I'm like, please react to this, Paragus. Please have a reaction to this. And Paragus does, and it was so satisfying seeing Paragus's reaction to this. And Frieza's like, "Oh, it's the legendary Super Saiyan transformation, no biggie. What, Broly can't do that?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's so cool." And Paragus is like, "Oh no, he can't. Oh, I think Broly is at his limit." And I'm like, why did Frieza just assume Broly could do this? Is it because all of the other Saiyans he said he has seen can do this? Probably. So he just assumes that all Saiyans can just do it now. So that's pretty cool. So Vegeta is now Super Saiyan, and he's getting the upper hand on Broly, but Broly is just getting more and more riled up. He's has more power, and he just keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And I thought it was interesting that they, of course, we all knew this was going to happen. We knew that Broly wasn't going to be as strong as Vegeta or Goku from the get-go because of the trailers and everything like that. We knew that, you know, okay, he's just going to get stronger as the fight goes on, especially if you've listened to the spoilers. So it's no new thing, but on one hand, it's somewhat lazy just to have him get stronger. On the other hand, it's kind of fitting with Broly's character in general, although this is a different take. It's a retake of Broly. That's kind of how he was in the original. He just gets stronger and stronger and stronger with his overflowing power. But now he's having his overflowing power where he's just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So yeah, it's kind of lazy, but it's for the sake of coolness. So, and I've come to expect this kind of stuff from Dragon Ball Super now. I mean, we've got 17, Gohan, Frieza, Roshi. Everybody just gets stronger because hey, we want them to be stronger. And with Broly, it's hey, he is, basically the quote unquote legendary Super Saiyan, though I don't remember if they've actually stated that in this movie. So is he like a reincarnation of the legendary Super Saiyan? Even if so, was the legendary Super Saiyan that strong? But anyway, that's a whole different discussion for a whole different day. Broly's getting stronger. He's getting the upper hand on Vegeta and Super Saiyan now. And Vegeta's like, oh, okay, enough of this. I'm going to skip 2 and 3. And I was wondering if he was going to actually say it. Like, oh, well, you know what? I'm skipping 2 and 3. I'm going straight to God. And this was interesting to me. And this is where some of the fan service comes in, where Vegeta transforms into Super Saiyan God. And it was epic. I mean, it was so how his transformation was animated was amazing. And this is the first time we've seen Vegeta in Super Saiyan God mode. So it was awesome to see, but I'm still wondering why he decided to go to God instead of straight to blue like he usually does. I feel like he would have done that in the Tournament of Power as well, because they're trying to conserve their stamina and everything like that. And I feel like he had plenty opportunity to use Super Saiyan God, but he always went straight to blue. So they don't even say one word about this, about how he obtained it, why he's using red instead of blue. They just keep fighting. And it is awesome. But Broly keeps getting stronger and he punches Vegeta away eventually. But that first initial attack that Vegeta hits Broly with goes through freaking mountains and mountains until he finally hits the last mountain and stops. That was so amazing, dude. Like, that was probably the best punch in the whole series. It was awesome. Oh man, words can't even describe how awesome that was. But yeah, Broly just keeps getting stronger and finally punches Vegeta down. But Vegeta lands on his feet and Goku's like, okay, it's my turn now. And then we got that really fluidly animated scene that was that first teaser trailer of Goku launching at Broly. And we got these little tiny nuances of little tiny movements and animation really making it feel lively. Man, that was such an awesome scene. I know I'm saying awesome a lot, but it was awesome. But however awesome it is, that's all of the Vegeta fight we get. And now it's Goku. And I'm like, okay, please don't fight Broly in your base form. That is going to make no sense because Broly's not going to hold back. But, of course, in typical Goku and Dragon Ball trope fashion, Goku launches himself in base form, and I'm like, it would be so cool if he, right at the last moment, transformed into God right at that last moment, but he doesn't. He actually fights him in base form, and it looks amazing, and it's so cool, but there's just that underlying feeling of, oh, come on, man. Like, are you that much stronger than Vegeta? I mean, they've told us multiple times how close you are to equivalent of Goku and Vegeta, but so is Goku's God transformation that much stronger than Vegeta's or what? But he eventually gets beat down pretty quickly, actually. So I was glad that happened because that makes more sense. But he should have at least done Super Saiyan or Super Saiyan God. But he does go into Super Saiyan, and it looks amazing again. This transformation and so much yelling is going on, and later on it starts to kind of dull your senses. But I'll get into that in a second. But he starts fighting him in Super Saiyan. Eventually, he goes into Super Saiyan God and does the stop Broly from attacking technique. Like, did he get this from Chaozu? Did he get this from Hit? Because it reminds me of Hit's technique from the manga where he does, what was it? A time cage against Jiren. And there's no mention of Jiren in this movie either, which I thought was interesting. But he stops him and he's like, hey, Broly, take this easy. You're going too far with this. You're like raging out. And Broly's just not listening at all. And Goku's like, hey, I can tell that you're not such a bad guy. Let's just have a friendly battle. We're not bad guys. You're not a bad guy. You don't have to listen to them. You don't have to try to attack us to kill us. You can calm down. We can have a friendly sparring match that Goku loves so much. But Broly's not having any of it. He just keeps attacking. And the brutality of this is amazing. You can feel the impacts of Broly's hits. He is knocking the crap out of Goku. And I mean, on one hand, yeah, Broly is brutalizing the crap out of this guy. But on the other hand, he's bashing him against ice. So is ice able to hurt these guys, I guess? But man, the voice from Sean Schemmel, the grunts and the yelling, and this is like, you are feeling the pain that Goku's feeling right now. And he grabs his face and just like plows it through the wall of ice, and Goku is just down. He is like in this form at his limit. And here I'm thinking, okay, so this is now Vegeta's gonna jump in here, but no. That would have been really cool, a good switcheroo there, like a tag team match almost. But eventually Goku goes into Super Saiyan Blue, and this is where the fight kind of goes off the rails a little bit for me, and the enjoyability factor really plummets, because then they move into CG character animations, and oh man, everything's so fast that you don't dwell on the CG too much to notice it too much, which I was grateful for. But on the one hand, when they do, it does not look very good. And when they don't, things are moving so fast that you can't really tell what's happening. And that's a really bad thing that a lot of action movies do these days, with the shaking cam and cutting every half a second to where you can't even tell what's going on. So it's definitely worth a rewatch to try to notice and see everything that's going on. It's so fast paced and so intense. So it really lent itself to the intensity, but at the same time, it really lost me a lot with the CG and how quick cutty it was, I guess you could say. What do you guys think about that? Do you agree with me, or do you think it was still pretty freaking awesome? And what do you think of the CG? But that's my kind of opinions on that as well. And it does it a lot from this point on. So this is when it kind of started losing me, and I kind of lost track of what was happening a little bit. But eventually, Goku and Broly are fighting, and Frieza thinks to himself, he remembers, you don't know, this Broly guy, he's not going Super Saiyan or anything like that. And he remembers back when Goku became a Super Saiyan for the first time, and what the trigger was with that, and that kind of shows how smart Frieza is when he's thinking of diabolical things. So he just kills Paragus. But before this, Paragus does have that really great catharsis in thinking, oh man, Broly is just, he keeps getting stronger. He has lost his mind. He can't control his power. King Vegeta was right. And I thought that was so good. I felt like it was a little bit less than I would have wanted. I would have wanted his catharsis to be a little bit more like, oh, like me as a father should have done more. Like I could have been there for him emotionally, but I wasn't. And now look where we've come. My son is like being consumed by his own power. But we do get the part where he thinks, oh, King Vegeta might have been right. But we get to the part where Frieza kills him. And it's just a little bit anticlimactic for Paragus's character, because he's just sitting there and then he's dead. But it was a pretty humorous scene. I just wish that Paragus would have reacted to that, and then Frieza's like, hey, Broly, look, your father has died from a stray attack. And Broly just loses his mind again. And I felt like this would have been a little bit more impactful if Broly wasn't yelling so much during the fight already, but he just yells some more, and more explosive stuff happens, and then he just freaking does it. He goes Super Saiyan, the quote-unquote legendary Super Saiyan, and it would have been cool if they mentioned Kale at some point in time here, because Broly is probably the Universe 7's twin of Kale, I would think. But anyway, I should also mention that Paragus mentions the Ozaru power within Broly, and how Broly is like tapping into that power, that latent power without even transforming, which is a really good power boost. Even though it's only supposed to be 10 times, maybe Broly's multiplier for that is more, and he's tapping into that power, and that's kind of partially, at least, how he's growing in power so much. So yeah, Broly goes berserk, he goes legendary Super Saiyan, and just it's so fast paced, and everything's it's such a beautiful mess of things happening. And finally Vegeta jumps in there, and he's like, we're gonna have to team up with this, obviously, Kakarot. And so they fight for a minute. They do an awesome Gallic Gun Kamehameha blast, which I would have loved to see for the first time, but of course it was in the trailer, so that was kind of ruined. And also it was in CG, so it didn't really look that great either. But it was really awesome nonetheless. So they fight for about a minute until Goku decides to teleport Vegeta to Piccolo, which I thought it was a really awesome breakup in the action. And it was really awesome when Piccolo showed up for the first time and he noticed what was happening. I really wish that they would have cut to some other people during this fight to kind of break up the action a little bit so we don't get so fatigued from it. So it was really great having Piccolo there, at least, because the Z fighters, especially Gohan, Krillin, Tien, they should have at least sensed Frieza coming closer to the planet, because even in the Z Saga at the beginning of the Android arc, they sensed Frieza's arrival, and Krillin calls Gohan. He's like, Gohan, do you feel that? And then they go to meet Frieza on the battlefield, which I just wish that they would have at least cut to them and somebody saying, oh, your dad's got this, Vegeta's got this, you can just go along, be a happy family guy, whatever. But anyway, they teleport to Piccolo, and they immediately fall down, dropping into their base forms. And I'm thinking, okay, so Goku is understandable that he's this tired out. He's been fighting Broly for a lot longer than Vegeta, but Vegeta as well, he looks all shredded up, he's worn out too. But I felt like he was only fighting Broly for like a minute. So, I don't know. Does that make sense to you guys? I feel like we didn't see enough of Vegeta fighting Broly to be this tired out. But at any rate, they arrive at Piccolo, and we got a really great scene, albeit I felt like it was really rushed, because at this point, Broly has now begun to attack and annihilate the crap out of Frieza in his final form, which was awesome, man. It was so awesome. And Frieza goes golden, and he's like, don't you dare. You think you can manhandle me, you ape? And yeah, he manhandles him. So Goku and Vegeta go, and they decide to do the fusion technique. And Vegeta's facial expressions are priceless in this scene, man. So they decide to learn the fusion dance. They get it wrong 2 times, meaning Frieza is fighting Broly for an hour at least. But I feel like this is all super fast paced and really rushed. Like they show the skinny Vegeta, not Vegito, skinny Gogeta, fat Gogeta. I think they have their own separate names, but they really rushed through that. I felt like it would have been better if maybe they just got it wrong one time, because Frieza's fending off Broly for an entire hour when both Goku and Vegeta in Super Saiyan Blue didn't even last a minute. Man, I kind of wish that Vegeta had a little bit more fight. Like Goku gets knocked back by Broly, and then Vegeta jumps in to, save him and defend off Broly for a little bit so Goku can rest a little bit. And that also makes me think of Ultra Instinct, but I'll talk about that in a second. But at any rate, Frieza fends off Broly for an hour, and he's still in his golden form when they get back. And we get Gogeta versus Broly. Now, this is fantastically done and not too much CG from what I remember. So I was very grateful with that. So the animation was really on point. And some really awesome, this is really fast paced, but I felt like this segment, you could actually tell for the most part what was going on, even though it was so quickly paced. I did feel like you didn't get that epicness that Fusion usually has. Like your separate characters are getting beat down and they cannot win. Then they fuse and boom, this guy's on par or greater than that other guy. But they kind of just like jump straight into the battle and they're quick cutting and everything like that. And I feel like they weren't doing that much better than the Super Saiyan Blues separately. So I kind of wish that they conveyed that a little bit better. But of course, that's just my opinion and thoughts on it after seeing it once. So it'll probably change after subsequent watches or re-watches, I should say. But man, Gogeta, Super Saiyan Blue, Gogeta, he's in his base, then Super Saiyan, then Blue. So like I can't even describe how cool it was. But he ends up beating Broly. Broly finally reaches his limit. And so that was awesome, man. And Chilai and Lemon at this point have gathered the Dragon Ball, summoning the dragon. And that brings another thing to mind too, is that some of the music was mixed a little bit too high because I couldn't understand Chilai's wish. I think she wished them to, or Broly to be transported back home. And so when he is transported, he's just immediately calm again, which was really weird to me. I feel like he would still be raging out, but with nothing to lash out at, he would just naturally calm down. But anyway, he's back in his base form and everything like that, and everything's hunky dory. Oh, I forgot about Whis because when they go back, Whis has actually taken on Broly, and I really wished we saw the onset of that. Did Broly go after Bulma? Also, why is Bulma still there and alive, man? She should have been long gone. But, you know, Whis is toying with Broly, which was awesome. And this is when I wish that it cut back to Beerus changing Bra's diaper. That would have been awesome, man. But that was cool seeing Whis kind of toy with Broly a little bit, and then Gogeta jumping in and beating the crap out of Broly. So that's basically the climax. Chilai and Lemon are like, oh, you know, we kind of betrayed Frieza's army now, so we're on the run, so we may as well just go back and hang out with Broly. Maybe they should find a better planet to go on. But I thought it was really cool that Goku shows up in the end and he's like, you know, Broly would be a really great sparring partner and we could maybe train him to control this power a little bit better. And Chilai is just like super protective of him. And man, I really love her character. She's like a very caring, strong character. She's proactive, and hot. um, but that brings in the idea of butts. Like they show a lot of butts in the foreground in this. Like when they show up to get Broly and Paragus, Paragus falls in the foreground and his ass is just pointed directly at the camera and he's in his underwear. It's like, we don't want a crotch shot, man. And then Chilai, when Lemon and Chilai are watching the Broly fight, her ass is just, she's just like bent over in a seductive manner and Lemon's in the background and her ass is just in the foreground and they're talking about it. And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying, but you have a nice butt. So speaking of Goku sparring with Broly from now on, during their fights, I felt like there was some opportunity to possibly go into Ultra Instinct, but at the same time, I think that, of course, they didn't mention it. They didn't mention Broly's time or Gogeta's time running out either. But with in terms of Goku's Ultra Instinct, I feel like Broly was too much of a wild force of nature that just like kept relentlessly attacking to where Goku didn't really have time to react or get pushed far enough into Ultra Instinct and decided just to say, hey, let's just not play around with this guy and just do fusion. So instead of doing what he did with Jiren, he's like, okay, let's fuse. So that's kind of how I see it a little bit. What do you guys think? Do you think Goku should have gone into Ultra Instinct or not? And also, when it comes to Gogeta's time limit, no mention of that either, and that would fall under the variable category, which I outlined in my the Broly movie could be doomed video, which didn't get a very nice response from people. But you know, All of those points I made in that video are still present in this movie, dragging the overall quality down for me. So why did Gogeta not defuse? Was it just a short amount of time that they were fighting? Or what's going on with that? It would have been nice to have at least a little throwaway line saying, oh, Super Saiyan Blue makes it more or less volatile of a fusion, whereas with the Potara, it made it more volatile as a fusion. So I guess that kind of settles which fusion is better in general. Maybe Potara is still more powerful in general, but Metamoran Dance Fusion is better in general because it'll last longer. Who knows? Maybe Gogeta and Broly's fight was only like a minute long or something crazy like that. Uh, but overall, I think the movie was pretty great. I think that sums up my thoughts on the movie. This is officially the longest solo video I've done. If you've made it to this point, I really, really appreciate you guys watching my videos. It really means a lot to me. I put a lot of work into these. And I have a lot of fun talking about this stuff. So thanks for joining in. If you have any thoughts of your own, just put it down in the comments. I read your comments and I appreciate comments, likes, especially shares. But yeah, thanks a lot again for watching. As always, take it easy.